Hello everybody, welcome back to another video by Jay Bowman. Today I'm talking again about one of my favourite synths, which is the Kodamo EssenceFM, which hopefully you can see just poking through the cables there. And I'm also going to be talking about a synth I've acquired relatively recently, which is the OPL Studio from Cheerful Electronics. Both these synthesizers are FM synths. There's a huge amount of differences between them though. The EssenceFM is far more expensive, it's far larger, it's got a much bigger screen, it's got much more voices, it's multitimbral to a far greater extent. And also, I think probably the core difference for me is that the EssenceFM has a kind of clean, modern FM sound, whereas the OPL Studio has what you might call the classic old-fashioned Yamaha lo-fi FM sound because it uses the OPL3 chip, which was used in the old PC sound cards. So I'm not going to do a detailed comparison between these two synthesizers. That would be an interesting exercise, but it would take a lot of time, I think, to cover all the differences. What I want to focus on is one particular aspect of FM synthesis, which I've not explored enough. I always say on my videos, I'm not an expert in FM. And getting the OPL Studio recently, I started to explore using non-sine wave modulators in a 2-operator FM stack. And I liked some of the sounds I was getting out of that arrangement, particularly using the square wave. So what I want to do is focus on that aspect of FM sound design and compare the sound of the OPL Studio using that particular type of modulation with the EssenceFM. Does that teach us anything about the fundamental sound character of these two synths and the differences between them? I don't know, but hopefully it will be an interesting exercise. What I'll also do as well is take a quick look at the patch editor on the OPL Studio. So hopefully that will give you an idea of how the UI for this synth works. I've done plenty of videos looking at the UI of the EssenceFM, so I don't really need to go over that. But this synth, as I say, the OPL Studio, there doesn't seem to be that much content online. And I have had a question from a viewer asking me to look at the percussion patch editor in particular. Now, I haven't done much work with percussion sounds on the OPL Studio. I've done a lot more with melodic sounds, but I'll touch on that as well in the exploration that I do. So that's the purpose of the video. So part 1, I'm going to look at the OPL Studio and come up with a 2-operator sound using a non-sine wave modulator on the OPL Studio. And then in part 2, I'm going to try and replicate, or at least compare that sound in the EssenceFM. So please stick around, enjoy the video. Let's get on with part 1. Okay, before we get started on part 1 of the video, there's a couple of things I have to talk about with the OPL Studio. It's now the morning after the bit of the video I just filmed, and what happened was I've had an issue with the OPL Studio that's an intermittent issue which shows up every once in a while. I'm not sure if it's linked to when I inadvertently use aftertouch. That's a possibility. It seems that the voices trigger vibrato on, and then I can't get rid of the vibrato. So I started filming part 1 of the video last night, and I had the vibrato issue. I couldn't get rid of it. So I ended up unplugging or restarting the OPL Studio. That didn't work, so I had to do a factory reset to try and get rid of the vibrato. And that seems like that has solved the issue. Unfortunately, what that has done is you can probably hear the screen whine, I think that's what it is, which started up again once I did the factory reset. Now, I had made some tweaks to the OPL Studio. In particular, I changed the screen colors and type, and that seemed to have got rid of a lot of the screen whine, the USB noise, whatever it is that you can hear in the background. But now it's come back because I've done the factory reset. So I just wanted to, in the interest of full disclosure, show you that. I mean, obviously, no one pays me to do these reviews or demonstrations. I buy all these synths with my own money. I have to say that the OPL Studio, compared to the EssenceFM, it's a lot cheaper, and I really appreciate it and its capabilities, but there's a couple of rough edges, shall I say, and this screen whine is quite irritating. You couldn't really record with that. So what I'm going to do is turn off the OPL Studio, unplug it from the MPC Live power, which is what's powering it at the moment, and instead plug it into my USB power bank, and that should hopefully stop the whining, so to speak. So let's see. Okay. Hopefully you can hear now it has stopped the screen whine. So that is the benefit of using the USB power bank. Obviously I'll try and play with the screen again later to get it to the point where I can use it with the MPC power bank. So what I want to do now is take a look at the patch editor. So I was just getting the stylus out so I can use that to touch the or trigger the UI. So here we have the main screen for the patch editor. At the top it says patch editor. You've got two options. You've got melodic or percussion. A commentator asked me about the percussion patch editor to do a detailed look at that. I mean, so far I haven't spent that much time with the percussion editor, but as far as I'm aware, it's identical to the melodic patch editor, with the only difference that there's no, when you trigger the different keys, the different pitches, as I'm doing there, they all play the same pitch, as opposed to the melodic patch editor, where obviously you trigger the different keys and you get different pitches. So that's my assumption, and that's as far as I'm going to look at the percussion editor in this video. Possibly if I spend some more time with it, I might come back and do a more detailed look at that, but for now that's all I'm going to say about that. So here at the top you have the name of the patch, where you can select your patch. You can change patch either by using the plus or minus buttons. You can rename it there. I should say, when I did the factory reset, I had to reset the screen, and I've not done a very good job of it. You had to reset the, the sensitivity, etc. And I think I'm going to need to go back and redo that, because it's not as good as it could be. But there you see how you select the different patches. Okay, so I'll put the patch on patch 0. It's gone back to 2. So you've got these plus and minus buttons. There we go. So under the patch, you've got the type. So you've got two operator patches, dual 2-op, and 4 operator patches.
So if we go into the dual to op, here you've got further options with these buttons here. So we've got two operator stacks side by side, or one 2 operator stack and then one which has just got 2 operators next to each other. Then you've got the reverse of that, and then you've got the final option which is all 4 operators, which are just 2 operators playing in parallel each time. So that's the dual 2 operator, and then for the 4 operator you've got one with a 4 operator stack. Then you've got 2 stacks, one with an operator on its own and then one with 3, a 2 and a 2, and then you've got a 2 operator stack with 2 single operators. So those are the various options, or algorithms I guess you'd call them. So I'm just going to use 2 operator. So here you have the next parameter, which is you're either editing the operator level or you're editing the effects. Now, I'm not going to go into effects in great detail. I did a short demonstration video showing how you can use the effects as a kind of modulation envelope or LFO to generate pitch. And I'll put a link to that video so you can see what kind of things you can do with the effects. It's actually quite a powerful type of modulation, I think. I've not spent a huge amount of time with it, but that's something I'll look into further. So the way you work it is you add an effect, you can add several, then you can edit what kind of effect it is here. So let's say you want to change the fine pitch or slide the pitch. There's lots of different options. You can edit the different parts of the envelope or the waveform. And some of those you can do on a per operator basis, obviously. And there's these little buttons here which let you select which operators are affected by the effect. Then there's this final option here, jump to effect tick. So if you select that as, say, your last effect, you put them in a chain, then for each effect you choose the tick, as in how long after the key on event happens does the effect happen. Then you've got the parameter, so how much of an effect does the effect have. And then if you set your last effect as jump to effect tick, if you set that, so let's say we had, I'm not going to change it now, but you had 4 effects, one at tick 10, one at tick 20, one at tick 30, and then at tick 40, you had the jump to effect tick. You set it to go back to tick 1. Then you'd have a looping envelope, effectively, or a loop or an LFO. So that's the way that you use the effects. So what I want to do is just clear all these. Yes. And then I'll go back to the operators. So you've got the feedback parameter, which I think only affects operator 1. You've got transpose, which I think just transposes the whole patch in semitones. You've got fine tune, which does the same but in smaller amounts. And now we get to the bit of the patch editor which I really want to talk about, which is the operator section. So in this 2 operator stack that we have at the moment, you can see that operator 2 is the carrier, operator 1 is the modulator. So let's set up a organ envelope with just a single sine wave. So we've got waveform 0, sine wave. If I press the key, you don't hear any sound at the moment, so I need to increase the output level. And you can do that either using this slider here or using this plus and minus button. One thing I'll say is actually all of these parameters, there's no hard stop at 0 or the maximum. So you can go round, which is quite useful. So if I'm on 0 and I want to go to the maximum, I'll just press 0 minus and there. Maximum output level. Now, when I press the key, I'm still hearing no sound, and that's because the envelope is not set up. Now, I'm going to talk about the envelope here. I have to confess that I don't wholly understand the way these envelopes work, so they still throw up some surprises for me. And obviously, I'm not an expert on this patch editor as a whole yet. I've done some playing with it, but I haven't explored every parameter, so I'm just going to try and talk about the ones I know more about. So the attack decay and release stages of these envelopes. The parameters, as far as I'm aware, these refer to rate rather than time. So if I want a quick rate, I need to go to the maximum value. So I'll show you that by, if I choose attack of 1, as in that's a low number. I've just clicked the maintain sustain button. Let's see if I just press a key now. So you can hear that's the slowest attack. So I want a fast attack, so I'll go to 15. I want full sustain, so I'll go to 15. I want the quickest release, so I'll go to 15. So here now I should have an on-off envelope. Okay, now the other options I'm not going to talk about. Obviously you've got the frequency multiplier, which is the ratio. You've got key scaling, vibrato, tremolo, envelope scaling. Yeah, I'm not going to talk about those in this video. What I want to do is now use some FM. So if I go to edit and copy the operator, I then go to operator 1 and paste the operator. So now when I play a key, I should have a full modulation FM 2 operator stack. And just for the record, so we can see what the purpose of this synth for me really is, I'm going to just show you a 2 operator sweep with sine wave going into sine wave, so you can hear how that sounds. And I'll do that again with the decay, so we can hear that. So you can hear there the characteristic stepping of the ladders, the laddering, sorry, of the envelopes as it goes up and down. That's great, and there's more as well if you add release, which I'm not going to do for time reasons, but that's the kind of characteristic old Yamaha chip sound of this synth. Now that's interesting. As I play the keys there, this is an issue that I've reported to the maker of the synth. You can hear that the envelope is not fully re-triggering. It's not re-triggering from the attack portion. It seems to be triggering from somewhere partway through the attack or the decay portion. So there seems to be some kind of bug there that hopefully can get ironed out. So as I say, there are still 1 or 2 issues with this synth. So what I want to do now is use a waveform other than a sine wave. So what I'll do is I'll go through the waveform options so you can see what those are. They have proper descriptions, but I'm just going to try and describe in words. So that seems like a half sine, 2 half sines with a period of silence in between. So that sounds like this. You've got continuous half sines. You've got a sawtooth wave. I'm just going to regularize that envelope. Okay. We've got sine, then a period of silence. Very buzzy. We've got 2 half sines and a period of silence. Also very buzzy. We've got the square wave, which is the one I'm interested in for this video. Now that's very odd because that just seems to produce a sine wave with a bit of a glitch in it. So I'll look at that further in a bit. Then you've got this kind of very narrow pulse wave. which gives quite an interesting nasal sound. So those are the 8 waveforms. So I'm going to go back to the square wave, which, as I say, is just at maximum modulation, is producing this sine wave with a glitch in it. Now, funnily enough, as I reduce the output level, to about halfway, as you can see from the oscilloscope, it's producing a sine wave. No, sorry, a sawtooth wave. As you can see from the FFT, that's showing the harmonics and the shape on the oscilloscope. So I just learned that using a square wave at certain output levels to modulate a sine wave generates a sawtooth wave. So where this gets more interesting is obviously if we use an envelope on the modulator to vary that over time. So I'm actually going to add a bit of release as well. I'm going to take the sustain off and let me add a bit of release on operator 2. I will say that it looks a bit awkward, me editing the patch in this way using the stylus. It's because I'm sat in a slightly awkward place so the camera can go where it is. And as I say, when I reset the OPL Studio, I didn't properly reset the screen sensitivity, so it's normally better than this, and it will be once I get to reset it. But here we go, so let's try that. Okay, hopefully you can hear that's quite an interesting sound that's generated by the square wave coming in and out and modulating the sine wave carrier and flipping it around. So that's the sound I'm going to try and replicate, or at least compare, on the EssenceFM. So that's going to be part 2 of the video, which is coming up now. Hello everybody, welcome back to part 2 of the video. The first thing I want to say is that somehow in moving things around to film this part, the dreaded vibrato issue has come back with the OPL Studio. I say dreaded, I think it actually sounds quite nice. But it's not what I want. And I know that it's going to take quite a lot of rigmarole to reset the OPL Studio to get rid of the vibrato. So I'm not going to bother, I'm just going to carry on with the comparison. Needless to say, although I love the sound of the OPL Studio, there's still 1 or 2 issues that need to be ironed out with it. And moving over to the EssenceFM,
it does feel, it's a lot more expensive obviously than the OPL Studio, but it does feel very luxurious in terms of the user interface and the reliability. I've had the EssenceFM, I've had it probably for a year and a half, and during that time I've only had to restart it twice, I think. Once was actually, funnily enough, was yesterday. There was, the screen was hanging, so I had to reset it. And then another time, a few weeks after I got it, I think, I turned it on once and some of the lights came on. I think the light on the back came on, but the screen didn't start up. But that was a one-off, and ever since then, it's worked flawlessly, apart from that one occasion yesterday, which I've mentioned. So, yeah, as I say, it's a lot more expensive. So in some ways you get what you pay for, but the one thing I'll say that you don't get with this is the old sound of the Yamaha chips. And I've spent a lot of time and I've done a lot of videos on trying to replicate some of that sound in the EssenceFM, and it's not 100% possible. I'll put a link to one of the most recent videos I've done doing that. Anyway, what we're looking at now is this sound. Minus the vibrato, but I'm actually probably going to have to build the vibrato into this patch to just try and match it to some extent. But let's have a look at what we do to replicate that. So obviously we have operator 1, which has this envelope here. So let's switch this over so you hear the EssenceFM. Just a bog standard sine wave. There's no, I haven't got disable waveform interpolation on. I'm just using the standard sine wave. So this is the plain vanilla sound of the EssenceFM. I want to reduce, well actually, I'm going to need a slightly more release. So the way the envelopes work on the EssenceFM is different to the OPL Studio and to every other synth I've got actually, that these segments you have, they're not named, so you don't call them attack, decay, sustain, release, etc. They're just numbered segments, and you've got up to 6 segments in total, because you've got obviously the one at the start point, which can be increased so it doesn't start from 0. And then you've got 1 to 5, so there's 6 in total. So I just want an envelope like that, I think, for the carrier. With a bit of release. So what I'll do is I'll copy that envelope, then I will move operator 5. So we have a 2 operator stack there. I'll paste the envelope there. Now what I want to do is remove the sustain. So at the moment you can see this blue line showing where the sustain is in this envelope. I click on, which is number 2, segment 2. I click on number 2, remove the sustain. There you go. So already you can hear some of the differences between the OPL Studio and the EssenceFM. I think the maximum modulation you get from the EssenceFM is more than any other FM synth I've used. It gives you a lot of more maximum modulation than is available on other synths. So the other thing I want to do with this envelope is add some attack. So you'll see segment 1 is what's giving us the attack. So I use this knob here. And I probably don't need a segment 2 because there's no sustain, it's just an up and down, so I can remove segment 2. But then I need to increase the release.
Now, in terms of the envelope shapes, again, that's something I spent a long time trying to replicate the sound of these old Yamaha envelopes in the EssenceFM. I'll put a link to a video. I'm not going to go over that again here. So you've got two options for these envelopes. You've either got exponential or you've got linear. I think linear sounds more similar to the Yamaha envelope than exponential. So I'll go back to linear. What I actually think is happening in the Yamaha envelopes, let me just play it again for example. I think it's kind of the opposite of exponential, as in it comes in with a slow rate at the start and then increases, whereas the exponential is fast increase at the start and slow at the top. I think that's one of the one of the reasons why it's difficult to replicate them on the EssenceFM. Now what you can do is add segments to try and get more of that kind of effect. But it is very difficult to do that without lots and lots and lots of segments, and I've only got 6 maximum. Obviously, I was playing with the EssenceFM envelope, but hearing the OPL Studio sound. So let's change that over. Yeah, so that's, you can hear. Let's reduce that. I think that's getting closer. Now we need to change from a sine wave for the modulator, obviously, to a square wave. So let's go through the waveforms. So I think, let's just tweak that a little bit. The other thing is, I noticed this square wave has rounded edges, unlike the square wave in the OPL Studio. So I think there's another option for square waves. So let's keep on scrolling through all of the waveforms. Obviously you can see here you get a lot more waveforms than you do on the OPL Studio, and you can make your own and import them. That's another big difference. But here we have waveform 24, which is a harsh square. Now that seems more similar. So we're in the same ballpark. Let's try the OPL Studio. Okay, that was the OPL Studio. Let's go back to the EssenceFM. Back to the OPL Studio. Back to the EssenceFM. I think that's quite close, to be honest. Let's compare it to the OPL Studio. Back to the EssenceFM. Huh. Yeah, the envelope is different. You can hear that on a single note, that it's... And I think that's just the fact that we don't have the right shape is not going to... Well, it is noticeable actually that there seems to be a bit of a peak here, that where the modulation is held. So let's try that. So that's the EssenceFM. Back to the EssenceFM. Okay, I think when you play a one note, it's obvious the difference between them. So this is the EssenceFM. Here's the OPL Studio. As soon as you play more notes, the difference is less obvious. So I'm going to add some vibrato here. Now I think the vibrato on the OPL Studio just has a single monophonic LFO, so I'm going to use the same for the EssenceFM. So I need to copy that to the carrier as well. That's too much, but also I think the LFO is a bit slow. Okay, that's the EssenceFM. Let's try the OPL Studio. Okay, let's go back to the EssenceFM. Interesting that there seems to be some kind of phasing between the
voices on the EssenceFM, so let's try doing the vibrato in a different way. If I go into the mod matrix, I use LFO1 to affect the frequency of operator 1 and operator 5. Yeah, so let's take this off. So each operator has its own mod section where you've got options for vibrato, but I'm going to use the global patch mod section. So again, that's too much. Let's go to 8%. Let's try that. Still a bit too much. Let's go to 5. Let's go down to 4. Okay, and now we'll try the OPL Studio. Back to the EssenceFM. Oh, I was pushing the wrong button, so I didn't want sync, I wanted common. That's the issue all along. Okay, so that's where I've got it to. I've got this sound on the EssenceFM. And I've got this sound on the OPL Studio. This is the EssenceFM. I'll just play them both together briefly. Okay, that is part 2 of the video. I'm probably going to wrap up with some conclusions, and that's going to be the next section. Okay, hopefully you found that interesting and useful. I've tried to be as honest as I can about the issues I'm having with the OPL Studio, the notorious vibrato issue being the main one at the moment. I really like the sound of that old Yamaha OPL3 FM chip, of which there are 2 in the OPL Studio. I think the envelopes sound great, and as I say, it's a sound that's very difficult to replicate even on a complex and powerful synth like the EssenceFM. I also like the effect of using square wave modulators on sine carriers. You get a kind of, obviously at certain levels of modulation, it's generating a sawtooth wave, whereas when the modulation fades out, it's generating a sine wave. In some ways, this reverses the effect of, doing a traditional filter sweep on a analog or subtractive synthesizer, but it gives you the added kind of glitch and digital nature of an FM synth, and it's quite an interesting sound which I'm going to try and explore further. Yeah, so that's my main conclusion. Which of the 2 sounds did I prefer? I think if you're just playing a single note, then the difference between the 2 synths is quite obvious. As soon as you start playing more than one note or playing chords, then it becomes harder to tell the difference. And I've done previous sound comparisons between the EssenceFM and other synths. For example, I did one between the EssenceFM and the Mega FM, and in the comments section below the video, it seemed it was quite an even split between people who preferred the Mega FM and people who prefer the EssenceFM. I suspect it would be a similar answer here. If we're talking in terms of reliability and ease of use and luxuriousness of use, I think the EssenceFM wins out easily over the OPL Studio, particularly with the bugs which I'm encountering at the moment. It could just be that it's my unit, but I don't know. So I am in discussion with the developer of the OPL Studio to try and look at some of these issues and hopefully get them resolved. Personally, in terms of the sound, I would probably say just on a raw sound level, I do prefer those glitchy envelopes of the OPL Studio, at least for certain applications. It would be really cool if Kodamo could update the EssenceFM via firmware to have more options for the envelopes. In particular, I note that at the moment you have an option to disable waveform interpolation, for example, on the individual waves for the operators. It would be great if there was an equivalent option or something similar for the envelopes to enable that old school kind of stepping sound that you can hear in those chips, in the YM2612 from the Mega Drive, or in the OPL3, which is in the OPL Studio. So those are my conclusions. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. If you did, please give me a like and a subscribe, and I'll see you on the next video. Thanks very much for watching. Goodbye.